OCO, and welcome to the Cherokee Phoenix Breakdown. I am Tyler Thomas, the executive editor of the Cherokee Phoenix, and I am joined today by Cherokee Nation Principal Chief Chuck Hoskin Jr. and Cherokee Freedmen historian and advocate Melissa Payne. In this episode, we will discuss the history of the Cherokee Freedmen and the tribe's plan to promote that history and the contributions of the Cherokee Freedmen to the Cherokee Nation in 2021. Chief Hoskin, Ms. Payne, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Hello, Tyler. Good to be with you.
Okay. As you both know, today's show is focusing on the Cherokee Freedmen. The term freedman, though often mentioned, I don't think it's truly fully understood by the majority of Cherokee Nation citizens. Chief Hoskin, can you kind of explain what you're referring to when you say, or who you're referring to, I'm sorry, when you say Cherokee Freedmen?
So, as the term is understood today, it would be Cherokee citizens of freedmen descent, and freedmen points back to the period of Cherokee history before 1866, when slavery was legal and practiced in Cherokee Nation, practiced by some Cherokees. And so the Treaty of 1866, our last treaty with the United States, contained a number of provisions, including that freedmen would be granted the rights of native Cherokees, and so freedmen and their descendants. So that population of Cherokee citizens today descends from those freed slaves.
Okay. Ms. Payne, anything to elaborate on that?
No, I mean, I would just have to say I'm thankful that we're getting this out here right now because a lot of people don't know the history and they don't understand why it's important for the freedmen to become citizens. So I'm thankful for that, and I am proud to be a Cherokee citizen.
Yeah. And speaking of that, what kind of pride do you have in not only being a citizen of the Cherokee Nation, but also a citizen of the Cherokee, or a descendant of Cherokee Freedmen also?
I'm very proud. I'm thankful for my ancestors. I'm thankful for what they endured for us, and the acknowledgement now that way overdue for the Cherokee Freedmen, now known as Cherokee citizens. So it's I'm thankful. I'm very proud to be a citizen.
Chief, it is the undisputed law of the land that Cherokee citizens are equal based on their citizenship, irrespective of their descendancy. However, the descendants of Cherokee freedmen were disconnected from their tribal nation for more than a century, and that prevented them from having the same access to tribal services, healthcare, and so forth that Native citizens might have had. And in 2017, both the federal court and the Cherokee Nation Supreme Court made a ruling that granted that equality, or affirmed that equality. Can you describe just what that meant to you as a supporter of the Cherokee Freedmen?
Well, I thought it was vindication of the proposition that the Treaty of 1866 meant plainly what it said, which is that the freedmen and their descendants had the rights of native Cherokees. I think most people would read that sentence and sort of have a plain language understanding of what that was. But for more than a century, Cherokee freedmen and their descendants were not afforded that equality. So for that to happen, I think was vindication of the plain language of the treaty. And those of us that support that felt vindicated. But more than anything, though, it says something that it was 2017 when it happened, and a great deal of time had passed. And as you indicate, generations of people not afforded that equality. That has an impact on both the people who are disenfranchised, and it had an impact on the nation. So I think the new chapter began in 2017.
Okay. Ms. Payne, your mother, Rosalind Brown, was a staunch supporter and an advocate and historian and so many more things. What did it mean to her to see that come to fruition in 2017?
My mother was astonished with joy. I mean, she fought hard. I recall her going back and forth to Washington, D.C. She's always fought for the freedmen. And that's one of the reasons we're continuing her legacy is she fought really hard for us, and she was extremely happy. She knew that justice would prevail, and we are now Cherokee citizens, and she was thankful, very thankful.
Yeah. Chief, you knew Rosalind very well. Can you speak to the efforts that she made during her lifetime?
Well, she was such an advocate for the cause of equality, for the cause of the descendants of freedmen. And if that was all, that would be a remarkable life spent in a cause that was definitely worthy of a great effort and a lifetime of effort. But she was more than that. She was a community organizer. Project A, one of the Cherokee Nation community organizations that we work with, did a lot, particularly for young people in the area that it served. She was a talented artist. In fact, before she passed, we had in mind a art committee that would help us better understand and expand art opportunities for Cherokees. And she was somebody we had in mind because of her love of art and her talent. And so much about Rosalind Brown was wonderful, but not the least of which was a lifetime of advocacy for the freedmen cause.
Chief, last month you announced your new plan that will explore the history of the Cherokee Freedmen, with the goal of the plan being to provide a better understanding of Cherokee Freedmen history and enhance how those voices are represented within the Cherokee story. Chief, can you tell us about a little bit about this project and what it will entail?
Well, one of the consequences of excluding freedmen and their descendants from participation in Cherokee society for more than a century means that they were marginalized in terms of their contributions to art, literature, other things. Their history, the history of the freedmen is often not understood across our population and beyond that. And I do think that one of the reasons our nation was less of a nation as a result of excluding the freedmen, and consequently one of the reasons our nation's stronger for having embraced freedmen equality, is because I think we're all richer if we have a deep and broad understanding of our history and our art. And so the goal is to make up as best we can for the more than a century in which we didn't celebrate the art of freedmen citizens and descendants and didn't study their history. Right now, if you went to look for photographs of some of the freedmen who served on Cherokee Nation's legislative branch before the turn of the century, you'd be hard pressed to find a photo of them. If you wanted to examine a lot of historic records, sometimes they're difficult to find. Out in the communities today, there are no doubt freedmen with great artistic talent, like the late Rosalind Brown, who are producing great art, but maybe we don't know about it because we've not included their voices and their perspective in celebrating Cherokee art. And oftentimes art itself is a way to interpret history and even reflect what's going on in contemporary times. And I think having freedmen participate in that more fully is important. And I just think it adds to the depth of our understanding of the history and the beauty of the art that our people produce, and it ought to be all our people. So that's the goal, and I hope by the end of the project we achieve that goal. But it's going to be something that we have to continue embracing everyone's perspective.
Yeah, yes, I agree. And what kind of role will the Cherokee Freedmen, the community leaders within the Freedmen community organizations, what kind of role will they play in your plan?
Well, they really have to play a leadership role. I think we approach this from the standpoint that we lack something. We lack a perspective and have lacked it for generations. Even as I say, going into archives, trying to find photographs that might be relevant to Freedmen history is difficult. So one of the things that I think Freedmen leaders and just everyday citizens can do is provide us, and we'll make a call for this, provide us with some of that historic record, some photographs, even stories, even oral history about how things have been over the generations. That's important. And then again, helping us identify those artists that are already out there doing great things, but we've just not connected with them. So I expect we'll have a call for artists. I expect we'll have a call for people to even submit papers, whether it's academic papers, or you can even get creative and maybe young people. Some of the young people that have been involved in Project A, for example, maybe one of their projects is to write about their experience or write about history. I think that Freedmen organization leaders, community organizers, really will have to kind of show us the way in that regard, because it's uncharted territory for the Cherokee Nation, unfortunately, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Miss Payne, what does it mean to you to see such an effort being done now to not only unite Cherokee Nation citizens, but also promote the history and voices of Cherokee Freedmen?
This means a lot. We can now teach our youth as well. Um, there's so much that I'm still learning, and that's amazing to me because at my age I should know more. But as Chief Hoskin just said, a lot of the history is not there to find, and so you have to become a part of it to look more into it, like the Rose Cottage and different things that we're finding out about right now. I knew nothing of. And so I think this is great for Cherokee Nation to do. I'm thankful for Chuck Hoskin, Chief Chuck Hoskin, for taking this time to include us and to help us learn more about our history because our youth need to know. We all need to know more about our history. And we most definitely can bring more to the table with Cherokee Nation. We, just as any human being, have such talent, and we are able to connect. As my mom would always say, one blood unity, and she had an event. She just wanted us all to be one family, and that's where we are today. So I'm thankful, extremely thankful.
Yeah. What do you think your mother would say today, knowing that this effort's going to be done in 2021?
She would be so excited. And I know she's looking at us all now and smiling upon this because she made it clear to me before she passed on that we have to continue this. We're going to keep pressing on. And she told me, you have work to do, and you know that. And with that being said, her legacy will continue, and anything that I can bring to Cherokee Nation, I'm willing. And most definitely with Project A, we will bring more youth and we will involve them and more talents. And I think this is just a great opportunity for everyone to learn more about Cherokee Freemen. Even those that don't understand why they're accepting freemen or why is it so important and where's their blood. I think that the more that we talk about these things, we have opportunity to learn and grow together, and more understanding will help. People fear what they don't know. So if they don't know, they fear us becoming a part of Cherokee Nation. And now that it's done, you can see, like Chief Hoskin has said, we're growing bigger and stronger. And I'm just excited about what's to come in the future.
Great. That's awesome. Chief Hoskins, is there anything more you'd like to offer before we end our virtual roundtable?
Well, just two things. One is just to reiterate that I think for Cherokees, for Cherokee Nation, for Cherokee society, achieving equality is inherently just good. It just makes us a stronger nation. Adding to our nation in that respect makes us stronger, not weaker. And I think that's the reason alone that people should celebrate freedmen history. They should be interested in this project. But there's another reason that I think all Cherokees ought to reflect on, whether you're a descendant of freedmen or otherwise. You know, in 2020, probably like no year before, we're really called upon to assert our treaty rights. And we've done that by asserting our right to a delegate to the House of Representatives. We've done it in the Supreme Court, advocating in the McGirt case that our reservation was never disestablished. There's all sorts of other treaty provisions in the future we will need to assert and claim and hold the government of the United States accountable. We always need to remember that the Treaty of 1866 is the law of the land, and it's our last treaty with the United States. That makes it very precious and very special. If we're to hold the government of the United States accountable for any and all provisions of that treaty, we need to make sure that we're abiding by that treaty. So irrespective of your views of this art project or other matters relating to the freedmen, if we want to hold the government of the United States accountable on the Treaty of 1866, the rights of freedmen become very important to everyone, every Cherokee now and in the future. And so I think people should reflect on that from time to time, that treaty rights matter and the freedmen's rights to citizenship and equality rooted in the same treaty that we use to hold the government of the United States accountable.
Ms. Payne, anything to add before we conclude?
No, I not really. I just thank you, Chief Hoskin, for taking this time and making this important to you as well as it is to us. So I'm thankful for the Cherokee Nation, and we'll continue to be a great leader for the community, not just the freedmen, but all Cherokee citizens. So I'm thankful for this opportunity and thankful to be a Cherokee citizen.
Thanks,
Chief
Melissa.
Hoskin, Miss Payne, thank you for joining me today and discussing the history of the Cherokee Freedmen and the tribe's plans to promote that history and contributions. I also want to thank our audience for watching this episode of the Cherokee Phoenix Breakdown, and be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to catch our next episode. What up?
Yep.
You know.